on the president's orders, a photograph of a beaten slave is being removed from all national parks, including Harper's Ferry National Historic Park in West Virginia. Until now, we have held off showing you that picture to prepare you because it is especially graphic.
We're going to bring in Chief Legal Analyst Khalif Rhodes into this conversation, but we're going to show you this photograph from 1863 before we dive in. It's called the Scourged Back, and it's also known as Whipped Peter. His name was Pete Gordon, an escaped slave who was whipped so many times the horrifying marks on his back are clear to see.
All right, we've got Khalif Rhodes back with us here to talk about this. The president had an executive order back in March of this year restoring truth's sanity to American history, instructing the Interior Department to eliminate, quote, eliminate interpretive materials deemed part of a corrosive ideology that disparages historic Americans. Where does this picture, is it up for interpretation on what's corrosive? What does that look like legally?
I think there are a number of concerns that will be there. I mean, it's under his discretion to be able to do that as the executive, so I'll start there. But there will be a number of constitutional grounds in terms of, I say this a number of times, your First Amendment isn't just the speech that I say, it isn't just the clothes that I wear, it's also my ability to acquire and access speech specifically in public places. And so in these locations that he's talking about, like in national museums or national parks, this is a public forum, a public location that I, as a United States citizen, should have access to be able to see and acquire these types of things. And so the removal, because that's what it is, not as the National Park spokesman said, this isn't a removal, this is a chance for us to give balance and to give historical context rather than outright erasure. I am not sure how it isn't. I mean, if you're removing these images, you got to remember at the time when this image was taken, 1863, folks in the North didn't believe this was happening. And so you didn't have photos, you didn't have any images. If you didn't travel to the South and see it for yourself, it's like the kids say today, if you don't have a photo, it didn't exist, it didn't happen. It's the same exact thing. This photo right here was an actual picture to show you what the horrors and what it actually looked like during the time, not just to see a whip, but to see the scars on an individual's back. And so it was a constant reminder, but the push to remove these types of things isn't new.
Well, so what do you think is the legal action that can be taken in order to keep things like this available to the public as part of national parks, which again, you know, is federally controlled, but what does that legal action look like to keep it?
The first step will be an injunction. You'd file an injunction just like anything else, an irreparable harm, because you can't throw money at the memory or the education that you'd get from lacking or not being able to see these images. And so that would be the first step, and then finding a court that's open and willing to do that. And then challenging and having a court that's willing to say this is something that you cannot do because it's constitutionally protected. I've mentioned this is not something new. In the era of Reconstruction, right after we come out of Reconstruction, there was a huge push. I'm talking about a serious push with this lost cause narrative to disconnect the Civil War from slavery. That, hey, this wasn't a big thing, that the slave owners were nice and the enslaved people, they were happy, loyal, and content. That narrative was pushed all the way throughout Reconstruction. So then when we fast forward to the 20th century, all the way up into the 1960s, books in the South specifically that they were reading were saying that slavery was just benign. It was this little thing that happened. It wasn't until the Civil Rights Act in 1960s that you had folks saying, okay, we got to stop attempting to erase this history. And so now this is just a reoccurrence of the pushback, because before that time, there was really no mentioning of these types of things. Fast forward to the 60s, and now you have an awakening, or at least a reckoning, an attempt to reckon with our past. And so then you start to see these things pop up. Now this is an attempt to pull that back, to try to, as President Trump has said, restore truth and sanity. But this is true. This did occur. This isn't something that someone made up. I mean, there was no AI back then. This image wasn't created. They took this picture of a man that went through horror. And now to attempt to make it seem like it's something that's, you know, painting that era in a light that's unfavorable. Well, if it's unfavorable, it's unfavorable. It's not like you paint it a better way. So I am concerned with where we're going, but in terms of legal challenges, there are many.
Okay.
It's not over yet. All right,
Khalif, thank you.
Queen City News Plus. Just search Queen City News on your smart TV's app store.